All right, good morning. It is 9 o'clock, February the 25th. This is the quarterly meeting in Tennessee Auctioneer Commission. First item on our agenda today is a roll call. Glenn?
Yes, sir. Mr. Morris?
Adam, hold on.
Oh, yay. Welcome.
Go that way.
Come just in time. That's right. All right, we'll give it a whirl then.
I know. Start early. There you go.
All right, Mr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Lowe?
Here.
Mr. Thorpe?
Here.
Mr. Collier?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
All right, great. Chairman, we have quorum.
Great. Notice of meeting.
Yes, sir. Notice of the February 25th, 2019 meeting of the Auctioneer Commission was posted to the website on February 19th, 2019.
All right, thank you. The agenda, does anybody have any changes, deletions, additions?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things we need to make sure is on the agenda today, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. I think we talked about it at the last meeting. Well, election officers is on here. I see that. And then I'm going to add one more item, and that's already on here, too. So no change to the agenda.
Okay, do we need to put some NAA on?
Already on there.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, entertain a motion. We approve the
So moved.
agenda.
Second.
Mr. Morris moves we approve. Mr. Lewis seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. November minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I've looked over the minutes from the last meeting, and I make a motion that we approve them as written.
Motion's been made to approve the minutes from November. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Collier. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Director's report.
Sure. For informational purposes, then, we'll go through the budget, and then we'll hit some of our action items thereafter. It's that time of year where we try to give a big snapshot of the fiscal year prior, and then we go, of course, drill down and hit the trending for where we're at in this fiscal year. So without going exhaustively into every line item, I'll just, if I may, I'll draw your attention to some of the big points and some of the big picture. Let's just look at that first page. This is a comparison of all the fiscal years prior. And this would be, let me make sure I've got the right one. We do, okay. This will be your Education and Recovery Fund. You'll see there under expenditures, you got $47,000, right middle towards about 3/4 of the way down. Your grand total there with the underline. Those are your expenditures. Total expenditures about $47,000, and of course balance that with the revenue coming in. That leaves us a balance of $290,000. So if we can. Well, that's in good stead. That we're slowly adding there. We're not adding too much, so that's good. But at some point too, we'll continue. We'll always look at these so that these don't continue to balloon. But right now, I don't think we're in danger of that with this fund, so we're good there. For the fiscal years for operational expenses, same setup. You've got, of course, your Edison expenditures and line items there. Total expenditures of $49,000 in that middle section where it says grand total, far right. You look down at cost backs; those are additional expenditures, not otherwise line itemized in Edison. And so we add those all together for total expenditures of $144,000. Of course, our revenues, if you were to go all the way down there, about probably one paragraph further, net revenue of about $192. Of course, you add the prior year fiscal balance as well, giving us a total of $461,000. So we're adding to that one as well.
Question for you, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
The licensing revenue seems to be way down. Are we just down that number of licenses, or?
Yes, sir. There's been some modifications as well, fees-wise, but other than that, there's it's just a moderate dip.
Fiscal year 2014-15, we're 264. Now we're at 199. That's off about $65,000. That's a good 22%, 23% there.
Not so much individuals, but firms and things of that nature.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So but the number of auctioneers being licensed is fairly flat or down?
It's fairly flat. We haven't seen a dramatic dip or anything of that nature. So that's good. Not unlike us. That is unlike some of our other programs. And we've got problems with recruiting and some of like land surveyor, court reporting, something like that. We haven't really seen that with auctioneers. Administrative cost backs, that's what that next page is. If you look right where it starts green, you have administrative cost backs of 95,000 or 96 rather. It's really hard to look at. Yeah, 95,000.
95,111.
Yeah, that's basically the your program share of all the programs of administrative cost backs, which would include basically all the things that we share, like facilities, equipment, things of that nature. And that, of course, if you remember, comes out of the program budget, and that's itemized to each program based on the number of complaints they have, how many licensees they have. And to give you a snapshot right next to that amounts to about 1.2% of all the programs. So you're not, whereas Cosmo and Barber is looking at 16%, out of near 7.5, near $8 million, you're covering about 95,000 of that.
Does that include investigative costs as well?
Yes, sir. Anything that's not itemized in Edison. Now, what's itemized in Edison, you get that on your trending analysis, but additional things that are kind of like regulatory board's overhead, that we have to split that up some way, so they do that based on the program budget for each program. This one would be 1.24% of that. All right, and if we can, we'll move to the trend analysis to kind of give you what's going on right now. And then I'm going to draw your attention to a few line item costs as well. As you can see, just overall, there's several months where we have a net deficit, and then I'm going to try to explain that to you here. You've got the course revenue on top, you've got expenses below that, and then our deficit or surplus. If we can, let's look at the other row. If you look underneath auctioneer expenses, it's the third row underneath Edison expenses. If you look, there's a spike in August, 3,000 there, and that was due to board travel. So that's nothing irregular there. That's pretty typical. That's typical with all of our boards. So nothing to report there. However, if you go down to technology, just below, it's an administrative cost backs. You'll see in September and October, that there's an increase in total administrative cost backs. Those are for all the programs, and that's largely due to our vendor MicroPack. They were doing some enhancements, code drops. So as a result of that, once we itemize that out to all the programs according to their budget, then that fell to a spike there. So that accounts for some of the net deficit, or that kind of just put the needle just beyond our general operating expenses. Also, let's go to legal cost backs. A little further down, about 3/4 of the way down, administrative cost backs. You'll look at, let me draw your attention to November and December. That's where you're getting a big spike there. That was due to hours being adjusted out. There was basically, when they reallocated the hours upon their audit and their review, which is typical, they do that. It's very common. They decided at that point that that's where that needed to go. So that should have been spread out across the fiscal year, but instead you're getting it in one big or two lump sums. So hence the results, and that's what's driving us then to the net deficit for those months. Now, if those irregularities remain to be the anomaly, we're fine. But if those continue to be a regularity, then we'll address those at those times. But I don't see any reason for us to worry about that now. Those seem like those are things that come up in the course of our operational initiatives or whatnot. And if we do another MicroPack drop, you'll see something like that again in technology. But right now we don't have anything scheduled, so I think we're okay right now. And of course, I'll keep you abreast of that as that happens as well. Is there any other questions?
Good job, Glenn. Thank you for the
Yes, sir.
detail on that.
If we can, then let's move to the NAA conference. Let me just give you the details I do have on that. As you know, we've always sent a representative to that each year. This year is the 70th National Auctioneers Association Convention. It's on July 9th through the 13th. It'll be held in New Orleans, Louisiana. Registration opens March 7th, and so we'd like to get ahead of it this year. In the past, we've waited on more information, but we know basically how that flows. This isn't a new association. They're well respected and reputable, so we know what they do and what function they provide to this board, and the benefits that we've yielded from or garnered from that. So We'd like to go ahead and have a nominee. If someone would be so selected, that would be appreciated, and then we can get that process started.
Make a motion, let Jeff do it.
Motion's been made to send Mr. Commissioner Morris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lowe. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you attending on our behalf.
I'm still President Naloa, and I will tell you guys that's we're trying to. It's becoming more and more relevant because every state, and I would invite each of you to attend and listen. We do it on a teleconference in February, which we had last week. And if you don't know who NALOA is, it's the National Association of Licensed Law Officials of America. And we have about 30 states that are members, and it's all people that are on either directly on an auction commission as a member or work for an auction commission in a state. And the big trend is trying to figure out this thing about internet, and everybody's really interested in what we're doing with the change in our law that we're proposing here that we did through the task force last fall, and the recommendation that we made in January. And everybody's trying to get their arms around this internet and auctions and trying to under their license. Alabama, one of the things they're doing is they're proposing that any auction, online or otherwise, is an auction as far as they're concerned, and they're rewriting their law to include that. Of course, we're doing the same thing here. Other states are really taking notice of what we're doing here, and OA is a great organization where all these states can share information and that sort of thing. Last week was in Arkansas, and we've had it in Tennessee too. These guys that come in from New Jersey and they do these rug auctions, and they rent a hotel room, and they'll try to get some young auctioneer that doesn't understand the rules and say, well, can we use your license in your state, and that kind of thing. And so, and they're doing that, and they'll come in, and then they run their own stuff that really having a problem in other states, and Arkansas was sharing that with us. So it's a great sounding organization, to get a kind of a nationwide feel for what the problems are in other states and what's going on. And I would encourage everybody to kind of pay attention to what we're doing over there. But thank you guys for sending me, and that's always good we're involved in that.
Appreciate your willingness to go.
Yep.
Okay, Chairman, if I may, then I'd like to move to the Roberts Rules. Every year, the forum for the procedural platform for what we do is Roberts Rules. We're using that today, so everyone's familiar with that. But we always, beginning of the year, ask for authority to continue to do that. So if unless someone has another procedural platform that they'd like to utilize, if we could have a motion in that regard to use Robert Rules, we'll continue to do so.
So moved.
Mr. Morris moves we use Robert's rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lowe. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Election of officers.
Right now, our current officers are the chairman is Chairman Thorpe, and then, of course, our vice chair is Mr. Collier. 62-19-106A does not require elections every year. However, traditionally, historically, we have done that, and so we're giving the board the opportunity, or the commission rather, to do that as well. So unless there's any discussion, if there's a nomination in that regard, or
Yes, I would like to nominate John Thorpe as chairman and Ronnie Collier as vice chairman again for another year.
Any other nominations? Would you like to make a motion nomination cease, we be elected by acclamation?
I would.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. Legal report.
Good morning. We have 8 cases today. 2 are 6 are brand new fact patterns. The first case is complaint number 2018-07-5901. This case is straightforward. It is a situation where bidding was reopened. The complaint was submitted by a husband and wife that bid on an item at auction, and they won the item. There was approximately 500 people under a tent. There was a new auctioneer taking the bids, and the seasoned 25-year veteran auctioneer was out on the periphery of the tent. And after the auctioneer up at the podium said sold, the 25-year vet on the periphery came in and said, nope, reopen it, reopen it. And our complainant thought he won the item. He's been going to auctions for over 40 years, per his complaint, and says he's never seen this happen. Now, two types of auctions. One is without reserve, and one is with reserve. And in both situations, the definition does not permit reopening after sold. Council recommends a letter of instruction to the licensee firm and both licensed auctioneers for the potential incompetent dealing.
It's true. If he cries sold, it's sold, and you can't reopen it. Mike Brantley talks about that in some of the cases, and once it's done. So I agree with your assessment of the case, and I think that's probably what you ought to do is send them a letter. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Mr. Morris moves we concur with council's recommendation. Send a letter of warning. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Lewis. Any further discussion on the matter? Yes?
You mean a letter of instruction or a letter of
Letter of
warning?
instruction.
Okay, thank you.
You always keep me straight now. Letter of instruction to the licensed firm and both licensed auctioneers. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes have it. Number 2.
Next case, 2018-07-7891. And this looks like the situation Mr. Morris was talking about with the hotel auction sales. We received a complaint ahead of the actual auction. We were able to send out an investigator who did not announce his presence, filled out a bid card, went to the hotel where the auction was being held. The initial allegation was that there was no auction license number being advertised. We received 2 phone screenshots of web pages, but when you go to the actual web pages and dig down, there are license numbers. So when our investigator went to the actual auction, all advertisements had the license numbers, the name of the auction firm, and then the issue boils down to seized assets. There was advertising for seized assets from violators of the law, and in the same size font, it explained what that was. And it says, seized assets purchased from police, U.S. Marshals, auctions, together with other merchandise, which constitutes the majority of 300-plus items. So that's the issue that I would put before the commission. Council recommends in this case a letter of instruction on the above advertising requirements. An auctioneer should not be in the situation where folks can simply take screenshots of web pages and not have the license numbers and whatnot. You shouldn't have to scroll through several layers to get the information.
Did y'all check out the license number? Are they licensed in Tennessee?
Yes, sir. They are licensed.
Under the same name?
Yes, sir.
Okay. They are out of state?
There was some advertising out of state and in adjacent states, so that was the confusion it appears the complainant had. The complainant believed that it was a Georgia licensee.
When they said seized, they didn't mean they were selling for the U.S. Marshals. They said that they bought that stuff from the U.S. Marshals. Is that what they're saying?
Yes, sir. That's what the advertisement that our investigator took a picture of as he walked into the auction. That's on page 3 of the legal report, sir.
It says seized assets purchased from police, U.S. Marshals auctions. So they've went to these auctions, purchased this stuff, and then are reselling this merchandise, what it looks like.
That's the only evidence we have, sir.
So the complaint that was filed about being unlicensed, is that right?
Yes, sir.
But they are licensed.
Correct.
all the advertisements you saw had proper license number, everything firm?
Have to go through several layers. One of them was a Facebook web page, and the other one was on seized assets or seizedsgoods.com. So it wasn't front and center like we would like.
But we know they're doing something shady, we just don't know what it is. So I guess a letter is all we can get away with at this point in time.
Council recommends a letter of instruction for the
I would
requirements.
concur with council, and I would make that in the form of a motion.
Motion's been made to concur with council and send a letter of instruction on the advertising requirements. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lowe. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. It's approved. Number 3.
Let me back up.
Yep.
The one thing I wish we could prove is the shield bidding that they do. That's if there was any way that the investigator could find out who was really bidding on those items, because this is what they do. They have their own guys in the audience, and I bet you half that stuff that they bid on didn't sell. So I mean, it would be hard to prove that, but that's what they do.
Apprise the investigators in upcoming cases, sir.
Yes, sir.
Third case, 2018-07-6411. This is an issue of an online automobile auction. The complainant purchased a car believing it had 15,000 miles on it. The complainant had the ability to inspect the car. The car was sold as is without any representation of warranty. And in this situation, there was a salvage title for the vehicle. And the vehicle at the time was owned by an insurance company. So it would have been the insurance company that needed to get it right on the odometer mileage. You look at the odometer, front and center on the odometer says 15,000 miles, but that actually is for the trip calculator. The actual miles were 117,000, and you got to look on the bottom side of the odometer to see that. So it was actually the mileage that ended up on the title is simply for one trip and not the full mileage. Council recommends referring this matter to the Tennessee Department of Revenue due to the issue with the title and dismissing this case.
Where would you file a complaint for motor vehicle? Would that be through the Department of Revenue, or is that through another agency?
The Department of Revenue should be the entity responsible for making sure that folks are getting titles correct. Like, this shouldn't have happened in the first place.
We don't have any jurisdiction over it, so I move that we dismiss it from our end and refer it to whoever.
Motion's been made to dismiss and refer it to Tennessee Department of Revenue or whatever entity is over it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Collier. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Approved. Number 4.
Case number 2018-08-2441. This is a case of unlicensed activity, and the most recent unlicensed activity that we could find was from January of 2018, so it's quite stale. It was hard to try to locate the address of this entity, and basically there were numerous complaints on the Better Business Bureau website and other websites, typically 9, 10, a dozen complainants each. This commission received one complaint, and the way this unlicensed firm, if you would, operates is they offer to sell your items at auction. They offer to come by, pick up all your furniture, contents of a home, contents of an apartment. They say it'll be sold at auction, and that a check will be forthcoming, and then they simply disappear. A lot of the addresses were very similar. There are a lot of folks out there that never received any money, so just flat-out stolen goods at this point. So council recommends, we have one complaint before us. We don't have complaints for all the other cases that could be potential. And so that's why I recommend referring this matter to the Division of Consumer Affairs, because they can keep track and log the number of complaints. And in the meantime, this commission does have the power to issue a civil penalty. Council recommends the maximum, up to $1,000 per violation. Here we have one violation of unlicensed activity.
You say you don't know the address to them or anything?
No, sir, and it's
So how you going to $1,000 fine?
it would unlikely be collected upon. But at least it's on the record that the commission has taken an action, and if somebody else, another entity of the state, were able to track them down, there would be that violation out there. So we're preserving it essentially for the record, but I would not anticipate that we would get good service, sir.
They advertise themselves as an auction company?
Yes, sir. Estate sales, auctions.
They don't have a firm license, an auctioneer license, anything?
Nothing that we could find, sir.
Wow.
And they change their name ever so slightly, fairly often as well.
Have a job opening for an investigator? I'll make a motion to go with council's advice. If that's all, is that all we can do? I mean, as much as we can put on it?
Yes, sir. And again, I don't anticipate we would get proper service, but
I understand, but
let's do the best we can.
I'll make a motion to go with council's advice.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to concur with council and refer the matter to Division of Consumer Affairs and issue a civil penalty in the amount of $1,000 for above unlicensed activity. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Approved. Number 5.
Case number 2018-09-1421. This is a case of damaged goods that were about 35 years old and that had to travel over 1,000 miles. Unfortunately, the complainant was out of state, contacted the licensee before the auction, and it did not appear there were any issues with the items. These were 2 milk tanks that were being sold. And the complainant says that the licensee claimed the items were in good condition and never worked on. But by the time the auction ended and that the items were transported over 1,000 miles, they were not working, per the complainant. As sympathetic as this case may be for a complainant, trying to bid on an item and when it arrives it doesn't work, council recommends that this case be dismissed.
So this is talking about the large bulk tanks, I'm assuming, in a dairy, the way it looks, because it's talking about electrical equipment and that kind of thing. I mean, once you take this out and put them on a truck and it goes 1,000 miles and you try to set it back up again, anything could happen. So I don't see how you can stand behind something like that. I agree with.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded to concur and dismiss this complaint. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Number 6.
The complaint was very sparse on this case. It's case number 2019-001-641. The complainant alleges that the licensee was not using the correct name or the correct license number for a firm that is operating at a new address and with a new name. The respondent replied that they are in the process of moving, that they just moved. The law does require licensees within 60 days to notify the commission of writing of change of information, and it requires a different license if someone is operating at different sites for their firm or gallery. So in this situation, the respondent replied, is aware of the deficiency. Council recommends a letter of instruction on this above requirement.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I feel like this is a good letter of instruction on this one. I guess they're still within. complaint was received on January 7th. They had 60 days to comply. They're still within the 60-day window, so I guess the letter is all you can do at this point.
Yes, sir. We don't know the date that the complainant may have saw or heard this information. That's right.
Okay.
The complaint was very sparse.
I make a motion that we go with the letter of instruction for the environment.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to concur with council's recommendation, issue a letter of instruction on the above requirement. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. It's approved. Number 7.
Case 2018-07-1181. This is a represent case. This is the case where it was alleged that a child was acting as an auctioneer and also making profane remarks to the audience. An investigator was sent out on this case, took the bidding cards, selected 10 names of the audience at random from those bid cards, and called those 10 individuals' names that he pulled out, and took interviews from each of those 10 witnesses. The investigator also interviewed the auctioneer, the apprentice, who's also the firm owner, the spouses of the apprentice firm owner, and took multiple affidavits on this case. There was no evidence of any type of auction occurring other than one for charity. It seems very early in the year, August through September and October, to be having a Christmas charity auction, but that's what the evidence shows. There was no evidence that the child made the profane remarks other than the complainant's allegation. The respondents claim that they will not have any more raffles. They claim that all the names and numbers pulled on the raffles were pulled at random, and there was no additional evidence towards that other than the affidavit submitted by the husband and wife licensee. Due to the lack of evidence, counsel recommends dismissing this case.
Suppose that's all we can do at this point. And I think the investigator did a good job, at least checking on with 10 audience members, and nobody can remember it. If it were that bad, somebody would have remembered it out of the 10. So I appreciate him doing that. And if they had the kid up there doing a little charity auction, there's no harm in that. So I've moved that we go with your recommendation and dismiss the case.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second to concur with council's recommendation, dismiss this case. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. It's approved. Number 8.
The last case, this is also a represent, case number 2016-06-1691. This is Attorney Brown's case. She could not be here with us today, so I will present it. This case is how you want to see the process unfold. Violations were found in this case previously. A civil fine was recommended. The commission approved the imposition of a civil penalty. The respondent agreed via consent order that there was a violation. He signed the consent order, and he also paid the $1,000 civil penalty. And at this time, respondent has also come into compliance by obtaining an auctioneer firm license from the commission. Accordingly, counsel recommends that this case be closed.
Thank you for following up on that. That's exactly what we like to see. We don't get to see many of these cases go all the way through where we actually get a signed order and a fine paid. So we appreciate you letting us know about that. And so there was no action by us, but we appreciate the information.
Thank you, sir. No action by myself. That was Attorney Brown that closed this one out for us.
All right, I believe that concludes the legal report. Ready for legislative updates.
We'll need a motion to close the complaint.
Oh, you do need it? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'll move that we close the case
Okay.
then.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to close the case. Any further discussion on it? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Now legislative updates.
So we have one legislative update for you all. As of now, this legislative session, we've had one new bill that has been introduced. It's House Bill 797, and this would amend TCA 62-19-112 and would add a new subsection requiring that the Auctioneer Commission post the names of licensees whose licenses have been suspended, revoked, or not renewed due to false or fraudulent misrepresentation on the Commission's website within 10 business days of such act being taken. So that, if this bill is passed, would take into effect upon signing. So that's the only legislative update we have at this moment, but I'd just like to advise the Commission that since the chapter has been opened now, Chapter 19, for the legislative session, there are possible we will have more amendments or more bills forthcoming, such as legislation coming from the Auctioneer Task Force, but we don't have that before you at this moment. We just have this one bill that I believe has been assigned to subcommittee. That's all we have at this moment, but if we have anything further, we'll be sure to let you know in the future.
Have you heard anything at all about the task force recommendations going forward with the legislature at all?
We've had drafts. We've seen a draft of a bill, but it hasn't been filed yet, hasn't been finalized. But I do anticipate that because the law requires it, it will be filed eventually. And this is just the original bill, so it is very possible that this will change completely during legislative session.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That requirement you said, is that going to be for all regulatory boards to post that?
No, this one is just tailored towards the Auctioneers Commission.
Okay, all right. All right, any new business?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bring up and see what you guys think. We got, like Bobby, a plaque for what his service, and I think we should give, if we may.
You'll make that in a motion?
I'll make.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to get a plaque for Howard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Make a motion.
Ronnie, would you invite him down, or would you just give it to him, or would you?
We can invite him down for the next, would it be ready like for the next meeting?
I don't know. Let me just
You can let,
the order in, and then
Yeah.
once we know it's here and we got it in hand,
Yeah.
so we're not handing him
Right.
We'll
our
just-
well wishes.
yeah, we'll haul him down, buy his lunch or something.
Sounds good. All right. Is anything else that the commission?
Anybody else have any new business? I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
Well, you earned your pay today. Thank you, John.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made. Second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
Get up and leave.
Hit that again, will you?
Good meeting, guys.